it's not 12:01 yet, so we made it.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I was running a bit late today too, so I just sent you the link. So my
Yes, and now
apologies.
I have to change my name now so that I always have different names available.
Oh, it's okay if we have the same name. I'm honored.
No, I've got so many. You don't even know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Larry the Murder Planet. Very, very good. I
Yep.
love that. Welcome everyone to the Unready room. We're a little bit extra unready today, but that's okay. We're here. I recorded the Positively Trek podcast, went really quickly, had something to eat. I'm coming here to do this, and then I have to go to work after. So yay.
I know days like that. I had one of those last Saturday, so
Oh man.
I
Fun,
get that.
fun. Totally. Well, like I said, welcome everyone and welcome Brandi. How are you doing today?
I'm really congested, Dan, because it's going to be inversion season here in Utah pretty
Mm.
soon, and that basically means just a big cloud of terrible
Ugh.
polluted air hanging out over the valley that we are sitting in, which is surrounded by mountains. So,
Yay. Oh, that's fun. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Um
yeah.
yeah,
So if I sound a little weird, that's why.
we got our second big dump of snow overnight. So, that's what
Please
we're
send some here, please.
You
We
can
need it
have
so
it,
desperately.
please.
After the drought we had, if we don't get a lot of snowpack this winter, we are basically screwed for next year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's always a concern for sure. So, late start to the winter here, which will probably be happening more and more.
Yep.
Yay. We've done such a good job of terraforming our planet. Actually, that huh.
Ooh, I see what you did there. Way to go.
I'm going to adopt that phrase actually because that's what
Yes,
we're doing. I love it.
it
Um,
is.
yeah. So we're talking about two episodes today. Um, the new Star Trek Prodigy episode, Terror Firma, and then of course we'll talk about the season 4 premiere of Star Trek Discovery, Kobayashi Maru. Um, I don't want this to go by without acknowledging to the international fans. I don't know if any of you are watching. Hopefully, you don't want to get spoiled and that sort of thing. My heart really goes out to you. It sucks that this was dropped at the last minute on everyone, this news. As someone who lives in Canada, I acknowledge how completely privileged I am to be getting uh, Prodigy at the same time as the US and Discovery a day later than the US. That's awesome. And I want you all to know that I'm no stranger to international deals. Sometimes Canada is a bit of a second thought as well. And right now, the producers of Star Trek have this deal with Bell Media that it's shown here on Crave and CTV Sci Fi. I've not had a look at that contract. Who knows when that's going to go up in smoke too? And they're going to want us all to move to Paramount Plus. And we could be in for something like this as well sometimes. So it's sobering to realize that these decisions can just be done with a swipe of a pen or a click of a mouse these days. So yeah, very, very, very heartfelt sorry to all the international fans for sure.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, I'm going to cancel my Paramount Plus subscription. Oh, I'm going to never watch Trek again." That's not the appropriate response to this
Mm-hmm.
because very few people made this decision, and they made this decision without telling anyone else at Paramount
Mm-hmm.
Plus or any of the cast and creatives of any of the shows. Nobody else knew about this. And so to punish these shows that people have worked so hard for and to punish the people who are working there who are just doing their jobs, like people calling out some of the social media posts, I'm sure they're being told, don't you dare mention this deal. You go on as if nothing is happening and everybody's a big happy family. I
Mm-hmm.
know in my heart that that's what's going on behind scenes. They're not able to say what they really want to say.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the posts from the Discovery cast have made that very clear that they had no idea that
Mhm.
this was coming.
Yeah.
So please, please do not punish a large group of people for the actions of a few. And, honestly, I've been paying for Paramount Plus since 2017, back when it was CBS All Access, because I wanted to watch Discovery. And I'm okay with that. There are some people who aren't. I understand that. But I'm just saying, don't have a grudge against what's on Paramount Plus because of the deals of these bigwigs and lawyers that have no clue what reality is like.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have put that better myself. And like you said, yeah, a lot of the stars of the show completely caught flat-footed. They had no idea. David Ajala was at DST in London promoting Star Trek Discovery, and then obviously he knew nothing about it not coming to Netflix. Everyone was just assuming it would go as the last 3 seasons had. So yeah, it's a bad situation all around, but
It is.
yeah. So again, privilege acknowledged. We get to see this show through regular means. Let's just say that
Well,
and leave it there.
technically I don't. I have to still pay for it, but I Star Trek, take my money, please.
Well, that's what I mean. Like we have the option. We have the
Yeah, we have
option to
the
pay
option.
for it.
Yeah.
These folks over in the overseas markets, they just don't. Like there's
Yeah.
no pathway to getting the show by normal legal everyday means. So my heart
Yeah.
goes out to them.
I'm thinking a lot of VPNs were created over the last few days.
I would imagine so. Yeah, no comment on that, but yeah, I
I,
imagine
I
that's
just I
happening.
just said I imagine.
I imagine that's
Yeah.
something that's happening for sure.
Mhm.
But yeah, so we're going to talk about these 2 episodes. We're going to start with Prodigy, just kind of arbitrarily deciding, just because I don't want to say save the best for last because that's not what I mean. Save the most anticipated for last, I guess. That's maybe
There you
the
go.
sentiment
There
I'm
you
wanting.
go. I'll agree to that. Yes, for sure.
All right. So yeah, Terror Firma, great pun title as well. We've got a direct continuation from last week, picking up right where we left off. And first thing I gotta say is I'm loving the interactions between the various characters as they start on this trek, this march to go find the protostar, which has crashed about 10 kilometers away, apparently. So, yeah, what did you think about how this episode opened and how they're all playing off one another?
Well, everybody's understandably upset, and Dal is still blaming Gwen, but he's not attacking her as much as I expected he would.
Hmm.
He's starting to act more like a captain, I guess.
Yeah, I'm seeing that for sure.
And of course we see that later in the episode, but one thing I will say, there's no way in hell that even with that little weapon thing that she put on her leg, that she's walking around on a compound fracture. I'm sorry.
No.
I have had a fracture in my foot. Gravity, like when they're pulling her up into the ship, that would have been excruciating. She would have blacked out from the pain.
Hmm. And
I don't care what species she is.
there's a couple of moments where she kind of does a little half run thing too, and I was like, whoa, no, 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 no. So
Mm-mm,
yeah, but it is a good
mm-mm.
illustration of her character and Dahl and Rock Talk, because Dahl says, we don't want her slowing us down. She made her decision, kind of thing, and walks off and leaves her there. And then Rock Talk reaches her hand out to help her, which is a really sweet moment. I love this character. I just,
We do.
anything happens to Rock Talk, we riot. Just saying.
Absolutely. I will burn things down.
Definitely. And then we've got Gwyn, refusing that help, being a little stubborn, being pretty, self-sufficient and not wanting that help. She doesn't feel like she's a part of this group. She's still on the outside. And yeah, that was illustrative of her character, I think.
It is, because honestly, we find out that this weapon or whatever it is, this malleable metal thing that she can control with her mind, is the only thing her father ever gave her. So she is absolutely used to doing everything by herself.
Mm-hmm.
She probably had like zero love growing up. It's just always training, 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 and trying to please daddy. And that's all she knows. That's all she
Mm-hmm.
knows. So she like Dal doesn't know how to accept help. He's figuring it out a lot
Mm-hmm.
faster. But again, there's progress during this episode. But yeah,
Definitely.
she's just like, just let Rock carry you or something. Come on.
Yeah. Um, Also, yeah, so here on my Crave app, I loaded up and it says the episode is called Terra Firma, and I was immediately like, "Oh, come on, guys, you got to fix that. You got to fix that. Can you hire me? Put me in charge of the Star Trek stuff on? Is that a job title? Like, because I'll just go in and fix everything."
Yeah, especially when it is a title of an episode, do not think that they made a mistake in the words
Hmm.
that they used. Just put it up exactly as it was given to you. Okay?
Yeah, it's either that or they just quickly glanced at it and were like Terra Firma, which is
Yeah.
probably, but yeah, it's just guys, come on. Yeah. Okay, so we've got the crew trying to make their way to the protostar, and one aspect of this episode that I found really interesting and a lot of fun was we've got Hollow Janeway on the protostar trying to figure things out from her perspective. So this is kind of the first time we see her operating without the other members of the cast. Like, she's just kind of herself, and we get to see her a little bit, and she's trying to figure out, what would the real Catherine Janeway do? And I thought that was a really cool, like, this computer program that looks like Janeway is trying to figure out what the real Janeway would do. I don't know. I just had like, you know, holographic doctor slash data vibes a little bit. Like, that was fun. I like the idea of this not just being a computer program, but a real character, and a character separate from Captain Janeway, Admiral Janeway that we know about. I think that's a neat idea.
I do too. I really liked that she has a personality. I mean, she's not just programmed with the knowledge, but she's programmed with the personality, and that is perfect. And I had hoped that that would be the case simply because this is in the future after Voyager has returned from the Delta Quadrant, obviously. And
Hmm.
so they have this knowledge of the doctor becoming sentient, He's a being who can think for himself. And, it's people may argue, well, it's just a bunch of programs. Well, aren't we all? We all start with a blank operating system when we're born. And
Hmm.
through our experiences, we become more and more aware and are shaped by those experiences, kind of like having new software downloaded. And
Hmm.
sometimes we have routines that don't work out so well. And the thing is that, like, especially with where mental health is concerned, you can change your operating system, but you have to work at it. You have to find the bad code. I know I'm taking this analogy really far, but
No, I like it.
it's really very much like that, because the doctor, he tried some different subroutines and some of them were not good.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
it was probably a lot easier to change his subroutines than it is for us humans to do that, sadly.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. We're both susceptible to viruses, though, apparently. So anyway,
Yep, there we
um,
go.
absolutely. Uh, yeah, the whole hologram Janeway thing. The other thing I loved was, when she starts thinking, what would Janeway do? And she thinks of this idea of the scrubbers cleaning the outside of the ship. And I just pictured Janeway, sitting in the captain's chair, looking just past the camera, going, "Time to clean house." I'm just
Oh,
like, yes,
absolutely.
that's a one-liner right there. That's a Janeway one-liner.
Absolutely. So I thought the same thing. When she said that line, I'm like, "Yeah, that's Janeway, baby."
Oh, perfect. Well, not one last thing with Janeway. We'll talk more about her, but something that I found really interesting was that she has access to the lower level systems, which we've heard before. But there are systems on the ship that she doesn't even know about. So this protostar containment system, she doesn't know. She's like, what is that? That's weird. So I like that setup, not only because, that's interesting for her character and stuff as well, but also the fact that now we know that she's not an unlimited font of information for every question that the kids are ever going to have. She's on this
Right.
journey with them. So there's not like a Deus Ex Machina in her. She's along for the ride as well, which I thought that was an interesting limitation they placed on her.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would think that they would want to keep it super secret. And so
Mm-hmm.
they just definitely did not include that information in her program.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. I just
Yeah.
love that limiting of that. And so it's not a answer all thing for every week. So
Yeah, she's going to grow along with the crew.
mhm. Yeah. And we'll talk more about the protostar containment system later too, because of course that's a big reveal. But in the meantime, we've got our crew trying to make their way back to their ship and encountering the obstacles the planet is putting in their way. And we know that the entire planet is a sentient being that's trying to consume them, basically. And on the way, though, they find a crashed Klingon ship, which is interesting. Not the
Mm,
first time we found Klingons in the Delta Quadrant, but very interesting that they find that there.
yes. And it does make you wonder, is this some sort of situation where it was another ship the caretaker grabbed to try and fix the problem, like
Mhm.
at the beginning of Voyager? Because there were at least two other ships that they had tried this, he or it or whatever, had tried this with before getting Voyager there. So it makes you wonder, was it that? Was that how they got there? Or did they get there through means that they haven't exactly shared with the Federation?
Mhm. Or
Hmm.
was it just like the other Klingon ship in the Delta Quadrant? They just took their time getting there with lots of generations or something.
Generation ship, sure.
Yeah, I don't know. What was interesting, and I didn't pick up on this. It just didn't penetrate my brain while I was watching this, but Bruce brought up while we were talking about this for the podcast. Jankum Pog, when they're on the Klingon ship, he starts missing home. He's like, oh, this reminds me of home. So that's interesting. Like, does he remember his time in the Alpha Quadrant before he was on the sleeper ship that he mentioned in the last one? And is he aware of the Klingons and that sort of thing? That was interesting. And I kind of want to go back and rewatch that because I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I didn't take it the same way. I just
Hmm.
took it as it may be a generational ship, and that's why the familiarity, because there were still lots of rations around. Looked like they were eating some dead gawk. So so I can understand
Yeah.
why Dal turned that away, but, it didn't, that didn't occur to me at the time because I just thought, "Oh, well, he's on this ship that seems like, you know, has been out in space for a while, like his generational
Hmm.
ship."
That could be
So,
too. Yeah, that
yeah,
makes
but
sense
either
as
way,
well.
it's interesting, so
I'm eager to learn more about his story because
mhm,
I think there's a lot there. It sounds like they're building a backstory. Yeah.
yes, agreed.
Okay, so we're on the planet, and of course the planet's trying to eat them, like I said, and the diviner gets there, and we get the heartbreaking moment, and it's one of those moments where you know what's gonna happen, but it's still just heartbreaking. And you know, we've got the ship on one side, we've got Gwyn being consumed by the planet on the other, and the diviner in the middle, and he's looking back and forth between his daughter and this prize that he's been after. And he makes his choice, of course, and goes after the ship, which breaks Gwyn like of this spell because she realized she sees this person for what he is, which is great. And it's doubly heartbreaking because if you think through the scene, like, it wasn't a decision made in the heat of the moment. It wasn't a hasty decision. He considered everything. Like, he took the time to stop and think about it, and then went for the ship. And like, how brutal is that? Again, you know that's what's going to happen, but still, it's just like, oh my God, like, what a despicable person.
Yeah, well, and we all expected that. We all expected there
Mhm.
would be a choice and that he would choose the ship. It's interesting because when he first sees the ship, when he beams down and he sees the ship, he says, "Salvation."
Mhm.
What is it about this ship that he needs? I want to know. You are giving me nothing.
Yeah.
So, why is this salvation? I mean, that's a very particular word to use.
Mhm. And in the first
So,
episode, he was saying something about Gwyn being part of his plan to save their species, right? So,
mhm.
yeah, what is the motivation? What is the path to salvation, I guess? I'm curious as well.
Yeah. Why does he need that ship? I mean, we know why he needs that ship, but why does he need, I mean, where does he need to go that only that ship will take him?
Mhm.
So curious.
Yeah. This is a great comment, Marge. Thanks. Yeah. It wouldn't be Star Trek without father issues. I mean,
Well, there
uh,
are mommy issues too
there
in
are
many
for sure.
Trek.
Absolutely. But it's funny, little side tangent here. How they always say, like, oh, Star Trek The Next Generation, there's no interpersonal conflict, everybody gets along. That was one of Gene Roddenberry's writers' rules for his writers' room. And I'm like, then why does every single person have an issue with their father? Like, Riker hates his father, Data and Dr. Sung have their thing, Picard, him and his father pushed up against each other. And anyway, that was just a little side thing. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Troy only has issues with her mom because her
Yeah.
dad unfortunately passed away before he could become a terrible father. I don't think he would have become a terrible father. I
Oh,
really don't.
Star Trek, we love you.
Yeah.
I think the writers were working through some stuff. That's my personal
You
theory.
know, that is really true for a lot of things, especially some movies in the 80s. Like, you can tell, like, the director was going through some stuff just by the way they treat women.
Yep.
So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Absolutely.
looking at you, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Mm,
This is my
among
stink face.
many
Mm-mm.
others, yeah. um, so this is a great question because it touches on something that I absolutely loved about this episode, which is, it got me. Like, it tricked me, and it did it so brilliantly, where, like I said, he makes the decision and starts off towards the ship, and then we go to the perspective from inside the ship, and we see somebody coming up the ramp, and it's Dahl. And I'm like, wait, what? And then it goes back to outside, and the ship was the illusion and wasn't actually there, and it was just being used to lure the diviner. And I'm like, I was audible at the TV. I was like, oh man, because yeah, they got me there. That was really, really well done. Kudos to the animators, to the writers. That was just perfectly set up. I loved it. I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, it totally didn't get me.
I knew you'd say that. You always say that.
Well, it didn't. It's just like, I knew
No.
it was going to be Dal. I'm just like, well, they're making it look like it could be the diviner, but yeah, he's got sticky out ears.
No.
It's going to be him. And yeah, it was,
They
yeah,
actually used
because
underhanded means to trick us too, because it was the
yes,
diviner. If you pause, it's the diviner, and the
mm-hmm,
the
they're
the
being,
like lens flare, the blur, and then it turns into doll. So like, they were being really sneaky with that one.
you didn't fool this girl. I've watched too many mystery shows. Nice try, buddy. But
Mm,
but I was there was like 1% of me that was like, but what if it's not? I'm like, no, it's not going to be the diviner. It's
mhm,
not, because I fully believed that what he was seeing, the protostar he was seeing, was an illusion, and I believe that Gwen did see it too. That was part
hmm,
of the illusion.
no.
So, yeah,
That's the
but
part. Like, I wasn't surprised that it wasn't the diviner, but I was like, how? Like, I didn't. it didn't occur to me that that was an illusion that the diviner was seeing. And I was like, that was well done. They did a great job there.
Yes. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And I do want to say, because we kind of skipped over this, I really loved the quiet moment that Dal and
Yes.
Gwen had, where, because they'd known each other for a long time, and they just finally,
Mhm.
he's seen her stand up for them now, and now he has more sympathy for her, and she for him. They're beginning to understand that, hey, we're in the same boat here, and though our circumstances are different, we have the same thing. We both just want to be loved. We both want to know who we be, I don't know, encouraged to be individuals, and
Mhm.
have someone be proud of us. That's what they want. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody wants that in life. So just
Yeah.
and as they're walking to the ship, because he realizes ships don't, or rather stars don't move, because they're watching, they're like, oh, there goes the shooting star. Well, at least the rest of them are saying, but oh wait. And so he's doing his captain's log supplemental. Love it. And you'd think he's back to the same old Dal, and he's saying, oh yes, and we're getting back to the protostar by using the stars as a fixed point, which was my brilliant idea. And I'm like, ugh. And then he says, with a little assist, and looks back at Gwen, and I'm like, okay, all right, you've learned,
Yeah, you
you've both
get a
learned.
little credit there. Yeah, that was nice. I kind of had to laugh just because, like, first of all, that was really clever. I love that. Like, oh, we can do reckoning by the stars, and then he turns around and faces everyone else, and I just in my mind, I'm like, the stars behind him are like, but they didn't. But in my mind, I'm like, that'd be really funny and
Yeah, but
horrible.
the
But
planet can't terraform stars, can it?
no, but I was like, I could do like a projection over them or something. But anyway, wasn't able to do that, thankfully. But I just thought like that would be like a funny gag. That would doom them all, so that probably wouldn't be good. So, yeah. Uh, so they managed to get back on the ship, and they managed to get away from the planet. And the diviner, this was something that I found interesting because there were a bunch of us that were kind of under the assumption that he was maybe infirm in some way, and like that he's in that big tank in the first episode and stuff. But he pulls some pretty agile moves getting out of the like vines that were starting to encircle him. So that's not what that's about. He's apparently quite physically able, at least in this moment. So that's a an assumption that's been kind of dispelled a bit by this episode.
Not necessarily, because I think that suit he's wearing has something to do with that.
Mm, that's true. That
So,
could be, yeah. I didn't realize there was a mechanical component to it. I hadn't noticed that.
well, that's the thing. We don't really know that much about it, because he comes out of the tank and he wants this specific armor. So there's something special about
Okay.
that specific armor, probably helping him be more mobile, is my guess. But really, they've given us so little information about the diviner that it's hard to say.
Hmm.
But I feel like, maybe it's maybe a little enhancing his abilities.
That could be, yeah. I'm, by the way, enjoying John Noble as the diviner so much, and I'm just probably going to say this week after week after week. Uh, I desperately want more of him. There's so many great bits with him in this episode, and I can't wait to learn more for sure. Not least of which is this confrontation between him and Gwyn over the view screen on the protostar as they're, at warping away. The diviner's ship is coming up behind them. This whole thing, again, it's one of those moments where it's hitting the beats, you know where it's gonna go, but it's still so satisfying to watch. It was so good.
It really, really is, especially because they are getting pulled in by a tractor beam, because they can't divert more power to the warp engines due to the containment the protostar containment's sucking it all up. And it's interesting because Gwen's sitting in that chair and she's having this exchange, and she's rightfully upset, absolutely rightfully upset. And then he says, "I had no choice." She's just like, "Oh, I see how it is." And she's like, "Yeah, well, I'm making my choice." And she activates the proto drive.
Yep. Yep.
You guys, that
That was
was so
so
freaking
good.
cool.
That was awesome. We see in the opening credits every week, this mysterious drive, and now finally we get to see it in the actual show. And I just want Eagle Moss to make 2 versions of this model now. Like, oh, it's beautiful. But yeah, they blast off, and according to Dreadnought, they're off the maps, whatever that means as far as their star charts and stuff. So where are they? Where are they going? Oh my god, it's going to be crazy. But the other takeaway, of course, is that Gwen knows all these ship systems. She's been prepared for this, and she seems to know a lot more about the protostar and its capabilities than anyone else. So I'm waiting for the next episode when everybody goes, "So Gwen, fill us in here. Like, what's going on?" And I really hope we get that scene, because I'm curious as all get out as well. And we got to wait till January 6th to find that out. But I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I want the story of why the diviner needs this ship,
Mm-hmm.
because she would know.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm hoping for, is like, what's going on? What's this all about? Why is he chasing us? Fill us in.
Why is he such a horrible person? Why didn't he give you any love? Where is your mom? Did
Mm-hmm.
she die when you were young and couldn't protect you? I mean, there's a lot of things I want to know about the diviner.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything that we haven't talked about with regards to this episode that we should cover? And that question goes to both you and the fine folks in the chat as well.
I did love the part when Gwen basically says she's gonna hold off Dreadnought and for everybody else to run, and allows for them to split up. They can't catch all of us, and they just end up coming back together because honestly, they are stronger together.
Mm-hmm. That
So
was what part of split up don't you understand?
also, of course, one of my favorite moments of the episode, which was largely overshadowed because there was a lot of conversation going on at the time, but it was Rock going, "Baby star!"
Yep. That was terrific. Oh man, this just occurred to me now, but like what just flashed through my head when they all end up back together and said, "What part of split up don't you understand?" And I just flashed back to Kirk in Star Trek 4. "The rest of you
Yes.
break up. You look like a cadet review."
Cadet review. Yeah.
And John Guppy brings up a good one here that I loved, that homage where they're all kind of hiding under the little berm there, and Dreadnought's peering over. I turned to Nikki and said, "Oh, this is the Ringwraith scene in Lord of the Rings." Which, by the way, I know we're not talking about Prodigy now. Lord of the Rings, if you want to talk about scenes that were fully formed in my head reading the book, and then somehow they scanned my brain and put it on a movie screen, that scene in Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. Oh, anyway, that's
Yes,
exactly what it was in my head.
and John Noble was in Lord of the Rings.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Eating all that food and being really gross. I mean, just really gross.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
gross. Ooh. Such a great performance.
Speaking of bad dads, he's just that's his wheelhouse, I guess.
He's just got this voice, that is just, I mean, I'm sure if he had different lines, he could sound very gentle and warm, but it's so much fun to just chew the scenery, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I do love him in Eureka. I want to watch more of that. I haven't seen very much of it, but That's one character of his that I feel like is a nicer guy anyway. I could be wrong,
Yeah.
but yeah. A rating for Terror Firma?
Well, for me, finally, Dal and Gwen are likable, and I knew it would come. I knew it would come. I figured it would probably end up being about what we thought was going to be the halfway point of the season, but it
Mm-hmm.
turns out isn't going to be. It's like a quarter of the way through the
Yeah.
season. So thank you for giving me that resolution, writers. I really appreciate you for not leaving me hanging for 2 months over that. Well, month and a half. So I really enjoyed this episode. I'm glad that Gwen's eyes have been opened and that she's breaking free of that lifetime of conditioning. So I would give it, what would I give it? I would give it 5 sets of moving hills out of 5.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. I really enjoyed this one. I liked it. Like I said last week, I don't know, something about it. I think maybe it was just the lack of resolution. That's probably
Mm.
all that it was playing on my brain. This episode, the character moments, the like cool tech moments, the neat action moments, like all of it just came together. I really, really enjoyed this one. So yeah, I'd have to say 5 out of 5 crashed Klingon birds of prey, I guess. So, but in a good way. I don't know that. Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah, I
is good
mean,
writing.
Gwen even knew what a mechleth was. I mean, that girl's got a font of information in her brain.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I'm just going through the rest of the. I'm seeing all 5 out of 5s, 10 out of 10s. People loved this episode, so
It's
but
very satisfying.
I do like 5 out of 5 things Janeway would do.
Yes, that's fantastic.
And this is not a fun fact. This is a disturbing fact. And I resent you for bringing it to my attention. I actually did already know that too, but I think I try and block it out of my mind every time I learn that.
Yes,
20
well, I'm
years.
older than both of you, so wah.
Yeah, it's not a competition. I'm upset about how old I am. Let me have
Okay.
it.
Wait till you're in your 40s, Dan. Then
I'm in
you'll
my 40s
know.
in just a few months, so bleh.
Being 40 is not in your 40s.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like a year and a half away from 50, and I just can't reconcile that in my brain.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's a cliche, but you're as old as you feel, right? And you do not present as someone almost in their 50s, you know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I will take it, and I will remember it, and I will remind myself of that every time my brain goes, "You're almost half a century old. What do you think you're doing? Why are you wearing that?"
Oh, yeah, once you start doing things by century, that's never a good. Like I remember way back when I turned 25 and somebody said, "Oh, you're a quarter century old." And I was like, That's not fun to hear." No.
Mm-mm.
So, yeah.
No. No, no, no. No. So, yeah, just I'm gonna be that old lady that is still wearing clothing for, like, a 40-year-old, and people will be like, "You shouldn't be wearing that." I'm like, "Girl, you don't tell me what to do.
Exactly.
I'll wear what I want.
Absolutely. For sure.
I have earned the right to wear what I want."
So Ricky says, "Fart joke last week, poo joke this week. I hope the progression doesn't escalate." What would the escalation be there? Maybe I don't want to pull on that thread. I don't know.
Or pull anybody's finger either, so
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what do you say we move on to the season 4 premiere of Star Trek Discovery? We've got the episode Kobayashi Maru.
Okay, I'm gonna say something that's gonna be controversial, but I'm really sick of hearing it this way. It is Maru. It has always been Maru, and everybody says it Maru, including everybody in frickin' Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, except for the guy saying this is the Kobayashi Maru. So I'm just it's a Japanese phrase. And
Mm-hmm.
you always put the emphasis on the first syllable of every Japanese word. There are no exceptions to this rule,
Okay. Well, I
ever.
apologize. I always
No, no, no,
just
no, no.
say
I'm
it the
not
way they
mad at
said
you.
it on screen. So
Yeah. Well, they said it on screen. Maru, the first person to say it, says, "This is the Kobayashi Maru. Our engines are down," or whatever that message is. I just,
Mhm.
yeah, people say Japanese words and names wrong all the time. And so I'm here to educate all of you. When in doubt, put the emphasis on the first syllable. Because, like, it really, especially with names, it is respectful to learn how to properly pronounce someone's name. And yet I
Mhm.
see people slaughtering Japanese names all the time. So, like, there's a Japanese name that's Hikaru, which people always say Hikaru. No, that's not it. It's Hikaru.
Hmm.
But anyway, if you have any questions, just ask me.
Okay. Well, so we have the season 4 premiere, which I'm not going to say the title of anymore because that wasn't fun.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just because my brain, I say it the way they said it 15 times in this episode, which is the way I said it. So, yeah, because
Well, see,
I
it's
know,
how
I know,
everyone.
I know I'm going to
Yeah.
say it wrong if I say it, so I'm just not going to say it anymore.
No, it's
Um,
okay. Say it however you want. They say it wrong in the episode anyway. They've said it wrong on screen, except for the guy who was on the ship trying to get help
mhm.
in neutral space.
So
Sorry.
we've got season 4 starting here. We've got Captain Burnham making an envoy to this planet at the beginning, and this whole teaser to this episode, I just want to call out as being so much fun and really a moment where I feel like how do I put it? Like, I don't have a problem with the previous 3 seasons of Discovery at all. But this scene, I'm just like, these people have found their voice, and the pacing, the back and forth, the first of all, the relationship between Burnham and Book, like their back and forth is just so good. And then the scene opens wider and we go to Discovery and Tilly's getting in on, like, all of this is just so good, if that makes sense. Like, they're just running like a well-oiled machine, you know. Is this a chase? Are you in a chase? What's going on? Why is there always a cliff? Like, it's just, I feel like these people are so comfortable in the skin of their characters, and it just really comes across here.
It does. Even with Book, who's only been with us for one season prior to this, he
Mm-hmm.
just slid right in there and he's just part of it. And we just fully accept it. And just, I, I love this whole sequence so much. I love the Alshane. What a magnificent
Yeah,
species. I want to see more of them. I mean, I know that that's a lot of makeup, but they're just fascinating. I want to know about them. And
yeah.
the
They're not
Alshane is
butterfly people.
actually no, they're not butterfly people. They're actually more resemble moths a little bit, but that's beside the point. There is a star called Alshane, and there
Hmm.
was actually a USS naval vessel called the Alshane as well.
Oh,
So
interesting.
it's definitely not a made up word just for Star Trek, but having it
Oh,
first
excuse me.
be the name of a star, that
That's
kind of
pretty cool.
fits.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fun. Yeah, they were interesting. The chase was a lot of fun. Um,
You are
yeah, the
holding
people.
a monarch captive?
No, 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 no.
How quickly that escalates is
Oh,
hilarious.
that was so good. Like, yeah, everything they said, like there was just they kept getting on the bad side of these people, and that was fun. Um, the one thing I will say is at first, and Bruce brings this up in the podcast as well, when they're running and they're getting shot at, it felt so typical, right? Like, oh, they're running and they're getting shot at and they're getting missed all the time. But we actually get an explanation as to why they keep getting missed this time around. And that was fun, kind of almost hanging a lantern on the trope, you know. Um,
Yes.
The one thing though was when they get to like that stump thing or whatever they're hiding behind. That was the one thing I had was like, well, they've stopped. The other ones could just circle around in front of them, but they don't. So luckily that doesn't happen. But they figure out, of course, the reason they're flying poorly and not hitting them is their satellite system's down, and fixing that gets them eventually on their good side. Maybe not their good side, but on the less wary side by the end. So sort of a successful mission.
Yes, I do like the fact that the Emperor contacted them once they'd gotten back to the ship, and he says, "You do not have a pleasant a pleasant visit."
You could
And
say
she said,
that.
That's one
Right.
way of putting it." And it's a really great is a really great line when he says, "Yet you gave us your dilithium. Why?" And she said, "Because we're the Federation. It's what we do." And I'm like, okay, I didn't cry, but I was welling up. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, yeah, yep, yep. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And now the ship is full of lieutenant commanders.
Apparently. Yeah, that was such a great, like, we're the Federation moment. I really appreciated that. The
Mhm.
Also, just for some reason, the way Burnham delivered the line, well, that was a hell of a thing. I just love that. That was great.
Mhm. It was great. And I really loved all of the crew working together, figuring out
Mm.
what was going on. But I think probably my favorite thing from the bridge was the whole, "Are you in a are you being chased? Are you in a chase? Like, how dare you get into a chase without me?"
That was good.
Almost like that.
I also, anytime we get Adira and Stamets when they were in
Mhm.
engineering there, and Adira is just having these moments of, oh, do you know birds have magnetite in their skulls and it helps them? And Stamets, at the end of that, Adira walks off and Stamets just has like this proud papa smile
I
on his face.
know. It's so great. It's
Almost
so
makes up for all the bad dads in Star Trek.
No, he is best dad. He is
Hmm.
best dad, and, gosh, I keep wanting to just say Wilson Cruz, but it's Culber. Culber, also best dad, but kinda more like a mom, 'cause
Hmm.
he's the more emotional of the 2. Although, Stamets has gotten a lot more emotional, especially over
Yeah.
the course of last season. So, he is definitely not the prickly pear that we met in season 1.
Yeah, definitely come a long way from that for sure. So we find out that Discovery is going to be back at Federation headquarters, introducing a new Starfleet Academy class. The Starfleet Academy is open for the first time since the burn, and the new president of the Federation, apparently. So, what do you think of the president?
Okay. I have to be very careful in what I say because I have seen 4 episodes as opposed to only 1.
Okay.
So, I have to remember that I'm speaking only about my impressions of when I saw this episode the first time. And honestly, at first I thought, well, she's a politician. So she's definitely going to be talking out of both sides of her mouth because that's what politicians do. They have to find some way to keep everybody happy and working together.
And she's
But
also going to be
yes.
talking like this all of the time. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, but that's a politician thing. Like,
Yes.
very well performed by the actor, I have to say. But
Mhm.
like, I was like, oh man, they're really selling the politician aspect. Sorry,
Oh, yeah.
but
No, it's true. We do find out a little bit about her during this episode that she used to run, like, cargo freighters for her
mhm.
dad. Um, so if you want my opinion of her based on the entire episode, I will say that she's got no business questioning the captain of a ship in the middle of a crisis and wasting
Yes.
precious seconds that could be used to save lives. She also has no business deciding how a Starfleet captain should command their vessel, because guess what? Playing it safe is not what is going to get you out there where no man has, or woman, or non-binary person, or alien, or whatever, where no one has gone before. You don't get there by playing it safe. That is
Mhm.
not how this works. But she is coming at it from her own experience, and she is letting her personal experience dictate what she is saying to Michael. And she really honestly thinks she's right. And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. No, no, no. Now, I don't see her as another Kai Wen character. I
Mhm.
don't. I
No,
know a
yeah.
lot of people have brought that up, but that didn't even occur to me. She is not without feeling. She actually really is, in her mind, doing her best to save as many lives as possible without, it getting into too much danger. Well, that isn't how it is out in space.
Mhm.
It just isn't. So I found a lot of her comments towards Michael very condescending and wrong,
Yeah.
to be frank.
Yeah, the moments on the bridge were what really bugged me when, yeah, we're in the middle of a crisis. You can't be questioning every order that Michael's giving, or, like, that's not. You might have very real concerns about what she's doing,
Mhm.
and maybe in that moment you think you're going to save everybody if you bring this up now, but that's not what you do. You sit back, you let it play out, and if there's an opportunity later, bring it up with her.
Mhm.
And
In private.
yeah,
In
exactly.
private.
Yeah, absolutely. um
Mm-mm.
so those scenes bugged me, where, yeah, that was happening in the middle of the crisis. What I found was interesting was watching this episode. I think both of them, both Michael Burnham and the president, are underestimating the other. And
Agreed.
that's very obvious early on, that Michael is underestimating the president with the, you can't come on the ship, it's too dangerous, it's dangerous to you, it's dangerous to my crew, blah blah blah. And she says, well, it's my ship technically, so I'm coming,
Mhm.
kind of thing. And then of course the jumping, the spore drive jump, where she says, you might want to brace yourself, the first one's tough, and she's like, nah, I'm good. And they jump, and Michael checks in on her, and she's like, you know I have to say, I loved that they did that. I loved that it wasn't the typical, like, whoa, oh my god. She's just like, no, I'm good. You know, that little bit of a, oh, okay. She's a little more formidable than we first assumed. But of
Mhm.
course, also the president is very much underestimating Michael, I think.
Absolutely.
And I think what's going to happen, and I kind of hope what's going to happen, is they're both going to learn a lot from the other, because I think the president has a lot to learn about Starfleet and the missions that the Federation should be doing. But I do think Michael has a bit to learn about, um I don't know. I saw somebody online put it perfectly, and I really, because a lot of people were thinking about Star Trek 2 with the obvious references here, and how that particular test, as Michael says, is rigged, right? So does Michael Burnham have kind of the same thing going on that James T. Kirk does, where David Marcus says to Kirk, you never really have faced that test, have you? You never have faced death. And Kirk says, not like this, no. And he loses big in that movie, and learns that, like, there needs to be a bit more of a balance. And I wonder if Michael will be pulled a little bit in that direction by maybe losing big at some point because of what happens. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing where I think things might go, but I definitely think they both are going to meet in the middle somewhere, because they're both right and they're both wrong, I think.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that Rillick is there is to challenge Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Whether Rillick knows that, I can't say. Whether she's purposely challenging Michael, I can't say. But that's the thing, though. You get to captain, and there's still work to do. You are never going to be a perfect person. There's always something to work towards. And with Michael, it is her thing that, we've known about since basically the beginning of the series, that she takes responsibility for things over which she has no control.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that's interesting about that is that she creates solutions that other people wouldn't, that other people would say, oh, that's too dangerous. I mean, can you imagine Starfleet with Rillick's ideas of what a captain should be like? Oh, there's a distress call. It sounds like they've got some people trapped. Well, that sounds a little too dangerous. We're just going to move on. No, that's not what is going to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
this whole cutting your losses thing is just, I understand that's what she has to do, but that is not the job of a Starfleet captain.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you're going to lose people, but you're going to
Mhm.
try like hell not to.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like a little bit, not exactly, but it feels a little bit like Vance and Starfleet of season 3, right? Where
Mhm.
they're in a bit of a triage mode where they can't do everything, they can't hold on to everyone, but they're in a different position now. They're
Yes.
operating more from a position of power and the ability to use that power to do good, So I feel like maybe the president is operating a little bit still from that, like, hold everything close to you and protect it, whereas Michael is both from a period of history and now in this new era where we have the ability to do some real good and make a real difference, by taking some risks. And
Yeah.
that's what's needed, I think. So it's interesting to see those two philosophies kind of butting up against each other, and I'm really looking forward. I feel like we have a good establishing of what the theme seems to be going forward. So without asking you or anything, because not a good idea, but I feel like that's an interesting building block to build the rest of the season on. So I'm looking forward to more on that. I hope, fingers crossed. So,
Well, you're definitely going to see more of Rillick. So
all
better get
right.
used to it.
Okay. All right. Even just like the character physically, I just love the symbolism of her being part Cardassian,
And part Bajoran.
and part Bajoran, because but specifically the Cardassian portion, like in TNG, we had the Klingons being enemies, and then suddenly there's a Klingon on the bridge when you
Mhm.
launch an encounter at Farpoint. And now, flashing forward, we've got a former adversary being part of the background of the president of the Federation. And the symbolism of that, I think, is really cool. And then, of course, the added symbolism of part Cardassian, part Bajoran, the two like most antagonistic, most hated enemies, the two of them coming together like that in kind of the same way that Zial was a symbol
Yes.
of that. It's really cool. I think that was a neat decision.
I really like it too, because we do not know what happened as far as screen canon. We don't know what happened to Cardassia Prime after it was basically leveled in the Dominion War.
Mm-hmm.
And we know, like, okay, so Enigma Tales by Una McCormick is fantastic for talking about certain aspects of that future after Deep Space Nine. In fact, anything by Una McCormick is great, but especially her DS9 stuff, as well, Dan. So,
Very much.
very much anything Una McCormick writes is brilliant, whether it's Star Trek or not, frankly. But
100%.
yeah, it's interesting because over on the Vedic Assembly, another podcast that I do with my good friend Dr. Nick Collinson, he is a real doctor. And by that I mean a PhD. Just because you say doctor, that doesn't necessarily mean medical. Come on. But we were talking about, we decided to do this thing of, okay, it's 20 years after the end of Deep Space Nine. Where are they now? And we were talking about where we would hope or like to see the characters, or where that we think they might have ended up. And we talked a lot about Cardassia Prime and a lot about
Mm.
Garrick. And it was just a really interesting sort of delve into that, because I truly believe that the Bajorans started organizing relief missions for Cardassia Prime and helped build up that race again. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Rillick.
Mm-hmm.
There are still Cardassians around, but they have obviously shifted into a different sort of mindset, a different way of living, a different way of being Cardassia, because what they were doing obviously did not work. And they had, I mean, they were so few in numbers, they didn't have a whole lot of choice, but they chose a different path.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love if someday Discovery goes to Cardassia Prime to just see what they're up to.
Yeah, that would be fun. Um, it's funny because that's, and I'm sure you know this, that's exactly what happened in the novels. Is Bajor
Yeah.
led most of the relief efforts on Cardassia, which is just yeah, beautiful. I love that. Oh man. Anyway, um yeah, Cardassia. I would love, we've seen a couple Cardassians last season just in the background, and then now with Rillick. Yeah, it would be really interesting to see where they're at now. And Bajor, like, you know, talk about a planet, probably the planet we've spent the most time on in Star Trek besides Earth would probably have to
Right.
be Bajor. And it would be really interesting to see where a lot of those places are now, for sure. Speaking of planets, well, no, we'll get there. Let's save that to the end. Grr.
Okay, does everybody want to play Guess What Made Brandi Cry this episode? Because that's the game we have now, because it's no longer a question of if Brandi cries during every episode of Discovery. It's what she cries at,
Yeah, and in
or
this
at what
case,
she cries.
not
Yeah.
only is it multiple choice, but I think it's multiple choice with like multiple answers
Yep.
correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about Archer Space Dock then, because
Ah!
I know that's one of them. That was cool. Like, talk about just like a beautiful shout out to Enterprise, introducing the Archer Space Dock, and you hear Archer's theme play as it lights up. Oh, that was so cool. I was really, really enamored with that scene. That was amazing.
Yeah, that one had me ugly crying. I can't even talk about it without getting emotional. Obviously. Um, and I think what made me even more emotional was because Dave and I were watching it together, and I'm like grabbing his arm while it's happening and just going, "Oh, my heart." And he was welling up. He's not a crier by any stretch of the imagination, which is fine. I cry enough for the both of us. But the fact that that got him that deeply just shows the power of that series, because I
Mhm.
love Enterprise. I adore it. It's one of my favorite things. And to have it honored in that way was just, oh, I was a mess for several
Oh,
minutes.
that was beautiful. And the fact that the Voyager J is the ship that's just in the
It's,
dock.
yep, yep,
Get a
that got
nice,
me
good
too.
look at it. That was
Hmm.
cool.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, okay, before we get to kind of like the last bit of the episode, we should talk a little bit about Saru, because we get him
Oh, yes.
peppered through this episode. He's back on Kaminar, and I love that we get to see the Kelpians and the Ba'ul and this kind of council together.
Yes.
That was great, because you know that was so much fun to hear about last season, that they had united and joined the Federation at some point. To see just get to experience that was really cool. And that Saru is an honored elder there. That was so cool.
Mm-hmm. That was really cool. When he walks out of the shadows, I'm like, I missed you.
Yeah. Who, like, he has so much presence on screen.
Mm.
Like Doug Jones, man, he
He's a
just
master.
owns. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of masters, though, the scenes between him and Sukal, Bill Irwin as Sukal,
Yep.
just so well written and so well done. And to see these two actors playing off one another, um, Bill Irwin, his delivery of his lines and just that very unique way. I don't know, like when he calls Saru the father that he never knew, like that was so good. And
Mm-hmm.
his little, I can't remember, like bringing everything into balance, and like
Mm-hmm.
it was I love both of them, their ability to use their bodies when they act as well, just incredible
Yes.
stuff.
It is. And that scene where Sukal is telling him, you don't have to stay here for me. That was number 2 of actual crying. So we've had a 1 well up, 2 cries, and we're how far into the episode? Um, so yeah, I loved that. I loved the whole scene with everybody when he comes out of the shadows and he says that Sukal is right. Another burn is not going to happen. The science is clear on that. But when he says Sukal is right, and Sukal makes this smile like, yes, thanks, Dad. just, just the two of them together, and yet Sukal has matured in this
Yeah.
5 months that we haven't seen. That he has friends now.
Mhm.
And Saru says, "What of the people who will look at you and only see the burn?" And he's like, "Those people will always be there, but they are fewer now." And what?
Thanks to you. Yeah.
Yeah, just that understanding, this his ability to integrate into Kelpian society with Saru's help, and just he's living his best life now, and he knows it, and now he wants that for Saru, and just gets me.
Oh, yeah. The whole idea, like Saru's introduction of everything that, like, um, looking after home, that
Mhm.
makes sense if you're just talking about Kaminar, but we talk about our star. It's not just ours. We share it with all these planets, and that zoom out further, and like we're just an island in this vast community. We're not just ourselves. Ah, talk about the message of Star Trek. Just like, come on, people, get it. Please get it. Could you get it?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, it
Oh,
did it much better than the movie This Island Earth, I can tell you.
hmm.
That's
Fair
a
enough.
terrible movie.
I don't even know that one.
The book is much better, or the story is much better, rather. But
Okay. No.
yeah.
Uh Man, I mean, just not wanting to get to the final bit of the episode because it was so heartbreaking.
Mhm.
But we get a little bit on Book's home planet, Kwijon, and we get to see his brother Kahim, and Kahim's son Leto or Leto, I can't remember.
Leto.
Leto,
It's
sorry.
Leto.
And I loved seeing them again. That was really sweet. Now, going into this, I do have to say that when we first were on Kwijon in this episode, I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. We're going to see more of Kwijon this season, and maybe that'll be like a bit of a home base for Book, and he'll go back and forth. That'll be kind of neat." Boy,
Yeah.
wow, what? So
Yeah.
okay, so we
Yeah.
have the ceremony, and the kid actor, who's just the cutest damn kid in the world.
So cute.
um,
I wanna keep him, and I don't even wanna be a parent, but he's just so cute.
right. And yeah, we see the birds acting strangely. They're reacting to something, so Book's gonna check it out, and he flies out of the atmosphere and sees, I guess it's one of Quijon's moons, just getting pulverized by some kind of distortion. That's the last we see of him for a while, until Discovery catches up with him, which we'll get to. Discovery, in the meantime, is on this mission to save this space station. And the reason I bring this up is I want to talk about Commander Nahus, who okay, a few things with regards to him, and I mentioned this on the podcast as well. First of all, the actor, he's been in a Canadian sitcom called Kim's Convenience. He was kind of a recurring character that popped in every once in a while. I love that guy. He plays the funniest character in Kim's Convenience, and it was so weird and cool to see him in Star Trek. And I said this in the podcast as well. I'm just continuing to put it out in the universe. Michael Straczynski, you're rebooting Babylon 5. If this new reboot of Babylon 5 has a character in it named Veer Kodo,
Please.
This guy needs to play him.
Oh, that would be so perfect. The minute you said J. Michael Straczynski, I'm like, Veer. He's Veer. Just so clearly.
Yes.
I want that so much.
Absolutely.
Oh,
and yes, this line, so good. Thank you, TJ. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Man.
I also love the word squiddled. That's going to be part of my vocabulary now. Squiddled.
Yep. Squiddled.
Which is really basically like foobar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So that's mostly what I wanted to say about him. And then of course, he has to tragically die. I was actually sad about that because mostly just because I love the actor so much. And I was hoping he might, like they rescued Jet Reno in the first episode of season 2. I thought maybe this guy might just stick around a little bit on Discovery because his station's gone, but darn it. So.
Yeah. Also, we finally have a name for an alien we've seen before in Children of Earth. And where did I put my paper? He is Akazonum.
Okay.
As was Kima in Children of Earth.
Nice. Oh, yeah, okay. I knew I recognized that from somewhere. That's awesome. And DJ Kitty Cat, thank you for the heads up. I totally forgot. So that has now been rectified. So.
Yeah, I purposely picked 2 names because we were talking about 2 different episodes.
That's awesome. I just totally forgot. I was going to come up with something, but that works. That'll work. Yeah, so that rescue, of course, we talked a little bit about that already and stuff. Just gorgeous visual effects, I gotta say. Like, just shout out to that for sure. Okay. All right, fine. We'll talk about the very end. They find Book, and they can't locate Quijon except, very far away from where it's supposed to be, and they go there, and so I can't see that anything would have survived that, right?
Well, the planet, it has no atmosphere anymore.
Yeah, it's
a dead rock.
Yeah. So Kahim and Leto are dead? What the hell? That was
well, I don't know. Mm-hmm. We don't know for sure. That's what we're assuming.
That's true. Yeah.
I would find it very difficult to believe they had time to get off the planet.
Yeah.
The thing is that I had been dreading this ever since they got the distress call right after the whole Starfleet Academy thing. And I can't remember who said that the nearest system was Quijon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. Mm-hmm. No. And when those birds all took off, I just looked at Dave and I said, they're goners. That planet's going to get destroyed because this station is that close to it. And this anomaly is continuing along this path. And so, unfortunately, I knew it was going to happen. I didn't want it to happen. Doesn't mean it didn't make me emotional. It made me very emotional and very upset.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I did see it coming.
Yeah.
I didn't want to.
No, me neither. I didn't want to see that coming either, but unfortunately, yeah. So that's where we end the episode. Um, so yeah, not fun.
Yeah. The one thing that I will say, and this is not like well, at least they did this, but this circumstance, this horrible tragedy has now put Book on a path that I don't know if he's been through this kind of loss before. How could he have been?
Mm.
And so
On
it's
this
going to
scale, no,
be,
not at all.
yeah, it's going to be a journey for him, which is good because some people just see him as, Michael's boy toy or whatever. He's much more than that. He's his own
Hmm.
person. He's not Starfleet. He could leave anytime that he wants. He stays there because he and Michael are partners now, and that's great. He's I'm looking forward to seeing how he works his way through this because only he can. He
Hmm.
can he can decide, he has to decide how he wants to deal with this loss. And I can't say any more than that because I've seen the next 3 episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's an interesting journey that we've put him on because he's the one going out and saving all of these species and creatures and people, and now he has suffered the most tremendous loss a person can.
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely. Well, who's the first officer of Discovery? Um, as far as you know from this episode, I should say.
there
If you
isn't
don't.
one.
Okay.
There
All right.
isn't one in this episode.
Okay. Um, the one thing, and I was waiting for it. And it's Reese who takes command when Burnham leaves, but I totally missed when she has it out with the president a little bit when she's gonna go take the worker bee. I was waiting for her to say, "So and so, you have the con or you have the bridge," but she never assigns it to anyone. And then we go and see that it's Reese in the chair. So I was like, okay, but I was waiting for that, and they didn't give it to me. So darn it.
Well, Reese was in the chair when they were at Alshane.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, yeah. Also, we've got New Boy on the bridge
Yeah, that was interesting.
because, yeah, well, Ronnie Rowe has some commitments to another series.
That
And
makes
so he
sense.
is not going to be full time on Discovery this season.
Okay.
And that is why we have New Guy, who
That's
is
cool.
adorable.
Yeah, he seemed fun. I was like, wait, where's Bryce? But that was cool. Then we got that little handoff, I guess, at the
Yeah.
Federation headquarters. That was fun. Yeah,
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah.
New uniforms. How gorgeous
Oh,
are those?
they look so good. I want one.
Yeah.
I want one so much. I want a blue one. I'm a science girl. I want the blue one.
Nice.
They're
Yeah.
just I love the asymmetrical hem thing that they've got going on, and they fit so beautifully,
Mm-hmm.
and just, I love
Yeah.
them.
I
I
love
love
those too.
the dress uniforms. Can we talk about the dress uniforms for a
Absolutely.
minute?
Yeah.
Those also look so great, especially Michael. She's got this dark jewel tone red going on, and it's just magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I
Yeah.
want to see more of those.
Definitely. I gotta say, I love seeing bright primary colors on the bridge again. Like, just,
Agreed.
like we got a bit of that in Disco season 2 with Pike's crew and stuff. But before
Mhm.
that, it was really like TNG and the original series before that, that you got that like just brightness on the bridge like that. So that was fun to just immediately be able to see like Captain, yellow, yellow, blue, blue, red, it was just like, that was so cool. I love
Yes,
that.
but they do also have white for
They
medical.
do, yeah. They're keeping that. That was,
Yes.
and Wilson Cruz looks sharp in that. I gotta
I
say.
know, right? I mean, he looks sharp in anything,
I
but
was
he
just
is
about to say,
making it work.
it's hard to have him not look sharp, like really.
I
But
know. He is just a finely formed human, you guys.
no,
Just really finely formed.
no. Follow him on Instagram.
Please
Oof.
do. I do. It's worth it.
Yeah, as far as the uniforms go, I love them. I love the fit. I love the way they look. I made one observation, and I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's just how he carries himself when he's kind of doing fast-paced scenes. But the one person who looked like he was just a little uncomfortable in them was Stamets in engineering. When the emergencies are going off, he just looks like he has a little too much starch in his collar, and he's kind of going like this all the time. Which kind of looked funny with the uniform just because it keeps its shape, so it kind of kept going like that on him.
Mhm.
But it actually kind of worked with the scene because it was so discombobulated and stuff, and I was just like, he looks really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think that that was probably, purposely done as far as the body
Mhm.
language, and they just didn't know that the uniforms would react that way.
Yeah, I think so.
So, it's like,
Uh,
stop making it out of wool for one thing, for the seriously. The actors already have enough problems with sets and wardrobe and stuff like that. Don't add wool to it.
Absolutely. At least it's not TNG season 1 spandex. That was a
Oh,
nightmare,
lord.
apparently.
Lord.
Yep.
It was just not right because, like, with the way the uniforms were, like, in the early seasons when they were just, like, that one-piece jumpsuit thing. Well, you know what happens to spandex when you've bent your knee in it for a couple hours? Because I do. I remember that period. I had plenty of stirrup leggings, thank you very much.
Ugh.
Doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Doesn't look good.
Not good. Well, luckily these uniforms do look good, and
Oh, they look great.
oh man, I'm already
Mhm.
seeing people with their cosplay uniforms, and there's some people doing some great stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would love one of those as well. I tend to go with blue or red usually. So I think yeah, both of those I'd be cool with that. So
Yeah.
um any final thoughts on this episode before and ratings from folks in the comments as well?
Um, I loved Adira trying to impress Tilly and
Yeah,
being super awkward.
that was
Super,
so good.
super awkward. That is, like, something I would do, and I just felt so bad for them, and at
Yeah.
least they knew when to stop talking.
Eventually.
And, I also loved that Adira just talks to Gray, like, right in the middle of the bridge, and everyone
Hmm.
just accepts that because they know what's going on,
Yeah,
and they know
they
that
know
Gray is
he's
really there.
actually there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I love the interplay between the 2 of them. I love how they speak to each other. I love how they tease each other in a very, good way.
Hmm.
There's certain teasing that is not great, but it's just in a fun way. They tease each other, and I just love their relationship. They are I think in the beginning, they didn't know each other, like, the actors didn't know each other that well yet, and now they're so comfortable with each other that every part of it is just so believable, every part of their relationship, and so I
Yeah.
just really appreciate that. I just really enjoyed them, both of them, and, I look forward to more of them, and, I do love that uh, Adira is bringing up all of these different things about the different hosts so that we actually get to learn really who all of them are. So we're seeing that a bit more. They're embracing that about themselves more, I think.
Hmm.
So I really enjoyed that. Something's up with Tilly, and that does not make me happy
Hmm.
because that conversation that she was having with Michael, there's something going on there. She's not happy. She's
Hmm.
not feeling fulfilled. Something is happening there. And I have, of course, perspective because I've seen the other episodes, but the first time that I watched that and didn't have that perspective, I was very, very uncomfortable because I thought, no, don't interrupt. Oh, it's urgent. Okay, well, go on then. But I thought
Hmm.
Tilly needs to talk to Culber.
Yeah.
She needs to talk to Culber and she needs to talk to Michael. It's hard. It's harder with Michael now because Michael is the captain and it's very busy. But all in all, this has to be one of my best season premieres of all time. That is in all of Trek. And I give it, let's see, what am I going to rate it? I give it 20 small carnivorous mammals out of 10.
Wow. Wow. 200%. That's amazing.
I really loved it.
Yeah,
and cried a lot.
Yeah, no, for sure. Understandable. I really enjoyed this episode as well. I can't find fault with you saying one of the best or the best season premieres. Yeah, it's terrific. Like I said, I really feel like they've all kind of found their groove. I feel like they just have that language down of, oh my goodness, my phone is going crazy. I apologize. Yeah, they've found their groove. They're speaking that Trek language. It's just coming out of them so fluidly, and yeah, they're a Star Trek crew. They're right there with the best of them. So this episode in particular, I'm really curious about the where it's going to go, the big bad of the season, this anomaly and stuff. And I just, they've hooked me again. So a rating, I'm going to have to give it 5 out of 5 perfect candidates for the role of Veer Koto.
Excellent.
Yeah,
I love it.
There is a comment I wanted to highlight, and I've kind of lost it. I can't even. Oh yes, Ricky's. Sorry. Yes, we got to see very briefly Admiral Vance's partner and their child. That was so cool. I was, and when Burnham mentions them, that smile flashing those pearly whites of his, I was just like, yay, that was so nice.
Yeah. Well, as I've said before, I've been a big fan of Oded Fair for about well over 22 years at this point, and I will watch anything he's in.
Mm-hmm.
I love that he's in Star Trek, and I love the character that he's playing. It's just, it brings me so much joy to see this more relaxed Vance, where it feels like there's not wolves on every doorstep,
Yeah.
and just, he is, and you guys don't even know it's coming. Just I keep wanting to say things. See, I thought that it was going to be that it was hard to keep the season finale of Lower Decks to myself, but waiting 13 days to talk about the season premiere has been torture.
I bet. Yeah.
Such torture. I'm glad it's finally out. Now I just have to keep my mouth shut about the next episode, and the episode after that, and the episode after that.
Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, the next episode, I believe they said, is called Anomaly, which is actually the very first time that it shares the exact same title with another episode from a different Star Trek series. And they've gotten around this before because there's the episode of Deep Space Nine called The Muse, and there was one in Voyager called Muse. There's one in The Next Generation called The Emissary. There's one in Deep Space Nine, the premiere, called Emissary. We've had movies. We've had Star Trek Nemesis and the Voyager episode Nemesis, and First Contact and Star Trek First Contact. But this is unequivocally, if that is the title, the first time we have a season 3 Enterprise episode called Anomaly and a Discovery season 4 episode called Anomaly. So I don't know, just wanted to point that out.
Yep. Interesting.
This is the ridiculous trivia that I have rattling around in my head. So that's a brief glimpse into what it's like to live as me.
Nobody wants to peek inside my head, believe me. You will run screaming. You're just like, that's what it's like all the time? Yes. Yes, it is. Always on, always at warp 9. That is my brain.
Well, if people want the briefest glimpse into your brain, or at least what you choose to share with people online, where can people find that?
Let me try that in actual hearable words. That's not the word. Anyway, you can find me on Twitter, Brandywine12. My name is spelled with an I, so Brandywine with an I, and the 12 is a number. Guess you can't guess why 12, but anyway. Um, so many reasons why it could be 12. And that's the way to find out all the things I'm doing. As I mentioned before, I do a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast with my friend Dr. Nick, and we're having a great time with that. And
Sorry. Thank you, Wellington. Bravo.
thank you for cracking me up in the middle of my thing.
Sorry, that was funny.
So there's that. There's What the Future Holds, a Star Trek Discovery podcast, which is obviously going to have a lot of episodes coming at you soon. And there is also Boldly Go, a Star Trek Strange New Worlds podcast. We still haven't gotten around to getting a new episode of that out. There was a lot of chaos going on with my co-host Suzanne with moving and whatnot. So hopefully that is settling down and we can do that again. I do a podcast with my husband Dave called the Dark Corner Podcast, where we talk about stuff and things from a darker perspective. We are actually going to record an episode today, and we have watched so much stuff lately that it's going to be an all review part 2, because we've already done an all review recently, but now it's part 2. So there we are. It's going to be fun. You can find that basically on all the podcatchers. Just look for Dark Corner and you'll find us. And I think that's it as far as I know. If I've forgotten anything, I'm sure someone will tell me in a private message after this.
Excellent. Well, yeah, you can find me, of course, on Twitter at Kertrats. That's Kertrats. It's just Star Trek backwards. The Positively Trek podcast that I do with Bruce Gibson. We're scaling it back just to weekly episodes, as far as a roundup of news at the top of the episode, and then reviews of whatever Star Trek episode aired that week. So this last week that we just recorded, that's coming out on Tuesday, it's our very first one where we're talking about 2 separate episodes, just like this live stream. So a little bit longer episode, but interesting for sure. And those of you who, I mean, you're not probably watching this live stream, but if you're not watching Prodigy and Discovery, the news bit at the front is spoiler free, and then we go into the episodes later. And yeah, that's the biggest thing we're doing right now. So that's always a lot of fun, and hope you'll tune in again wherever you find podcasts and at positivelytrek.com. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching this week. This was a lot of fun. This one a little longer than usual as well, but time very well spent. 2 episodes, one of which was a season premiere. So who's surprised, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much again. And thank you to everyone who's watching later on tape delay. Again, there's that 90s phrase that shows where my generation is from anyway. And yeah, we'll see you next week to talk about Anomaly, season 4, episode 2 of Star Trek Discovery. And Prodigy's taking a bit of a break, so just 1 episode next week. So see you then. Live long and prosper, and